Well, for the latest on the deportation of those Kenyan nationals, let's bring into the conversation international relations expert from the Center of African Diplomacy and Leadership at the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Oscar van Heerden. Good to have you back on SABC News as always, Dr. van Heerden. So, as things stand then, do you expect this incident will become another flashpoint in the tension between South Africa and Washington?
Absolutely. Trump is going to, and Marco Rubio is going to make a big deal about this. But as the minister has indicated, it was lawful. They had to do a follow-up on those visas, and they did the necessary protocols, and now they have been deported, of course, with a ban of 5 years. So there's very little leg to stand on from Washington's point of view, but I'm sure President Donald Trump and Marco Rubio is going to make noise about it and try and make a big deal about it, because, as you know, there were also some U.S. embassy staff involved in the skirmishes.
And just on that, what do you make? What's your reading of the fact that ultimately we're told that what happened here was the involvement of Kenyans in the processing of South Africans' visas applications based on that false claim of an Afrikaner genocide in the country? Why would the Americans rope in Kenyans to do that sort of work?
Well, this is the big question. I mean, with our unemployment levels in South Africa, I'm sure a few South Africans would be more than able to manage such a refugee center on behalf of the United States government. I'm not sure why the Church of World Service is being involved from Kenya. It's just all very dubious. In fact, the fact that those Kenyans applied for working visas were declined and then applied for 90-day tourist visas only to come and do the work in itself is a lot of question marks that leaves much to be desired. So I think, as Minister Schreider has indicated, DIRCO is trying to interact with Kenyan government and with Washington, D.C. to try and get a sense of why go about it in this particular manner. And as the Department of Home Affairs and the South African government has indicated, there's no problem with white South Africans, Afrikaner South Africans who want to apply for refugee status and go to the United States. We're not here to stop that. But why go about it in this particular suspicious way?
So no Americans will have been detained, deported in this incident, only these 7 Kenyans. Do you expect Nairobi will then take exception to South Africa's processes in dealing with this particular incident?
I don't think so. Surprisingly, I don't think so. I think the Kenyans are going to be very supportive of the South African government on this issue. And in fact, if anything, probably release a statement or a communique to its own citizens traveling to South Africa to obey the laws of South Africa, the Republic of South Africa. And if you want a working visa, apply for those. If you want to go on tourism, then so be it. But I don't think that there's going to be a particular tension between Kenya and South Africa with regards to this particular incident.
I wonder, though, if there is special care that needs to be paid to the movement of people between South Africa and Kenya. I ask that because a few weeks ago, when that the plane load of Palestinians arrived in South Africa, one of the reports said that in fact made a stop over in Kenya before ultimately being allowed to continue the journey onto South Africa. Now you've got these 7 Kenyans who were on tourist visas but working illegally in this country. Does it call perhaps for a review, a strengthening of the rules around movement of people between the two nations?
There is a call for that, definitely. And I do think that we must be honest. The truth of the matter is that this current Kenyan government is very, very closely allied to the United States and by extension to the State of Israel. They look at each other favorably. And so it's not a surprise that the United States prefer that Kenya and Kenyans are the ones that are doing their bidding on the continent, albeit in South Africa. So there is something that's to be said about that. And I do think that Minister Lamola and his counterpart in Kenya will have to try and iron out some of those differences. But yeah, there's certainly a call to say, in terms of the movement of people, we need to be a bit more circumspect.
I want to pick up on the alliance then that you draw between the Kenyans, the United States, and Israel. Would that explain to some degree, the absence of President Ruto at the G20 summit in South Africa at the end of November, when so many other African heads of state had accepted the invitation and, in fact, attended?
I do believe so. I do believe that it had a role to play. Of course, it did send representatives like some of the other heads of states. But the truth of the matter is that this is the kind of mechanism that is being used time and time again by the West in particular, whether it be Europe or the United States in this case, of divide and rule. They make certain offers. You would see, for example, it's no accident, Tembekile, that President Trump invited 6 African heads of states to come to the White House, wine and dine with them, and make very nice, favorable deals while we are being punitively punished as South Africa and so on. It's about divide and rule, and unfortunately, money and trade talks. And so I think that is precisely what's going on here.
And if that is the case, then if Kenya has chosen to take the side of the United States government, the Trump administration, where will that leave the relationship with South Africa? And in the long term, what will the payoff be if it's just about trade? What happens, for instance, in a post-Trump era?
No, this is exactly the big questions that we have to ask, and the African Union will have to ask that question as well. As you know, they are now a member of the G20. South Africa has been excluded. We'll have to see what they are going to do about that. Already, certain BRICS partners are raising concerns, including some Europeans, that this is not allowed to exclude South Africa. We'll have to see where is the unity and strength amongst our African brothers and sisters when it comes to this particular issue.
Dr. Oscar van Heerden, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for making time to be on SABC News this evening.